Hello, I'm Melanie Risden with the Western Standard. Thanks for joining me. And also joining me today is Brooke Patterson. She is a holistic therapist and a manual osteopath. And Brooke is a Canadian citizen who recently decided to do some travel. Brooke, thanks for joining us and for sharing with us what your experience was. First of all, are you comfortable with letting us know, why travel would be difficult for you?
Yeah. So thanks for having me to share my story. I think there are so many others that would like to share theirs as well, but they don't have a story to tell because they're not allowed to go anywhere. I have chosen to be unvaccinated. My personal reasons, which I will share, which are really nobody's business, is that I did have a brain tumor years ago, and I don't feel that this is best for me. And my mental health was declining rapidly over the past little while, and I used to travel quite a bit, and I am aware that that's a privilege to be able to do that, but I was able to, and being told that I couldn't, I was kind of going, just feeling so incredibly trapped.
As I'm
So
sure
yeah.
quite a few Canadians who are in a similar situation, unable to travel, feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, so my story that yes, I have made that choice. There are people whom I treat who have been vaccinated either with one vaccine and have had severe reactions, and they are also not able to travel.
So you decided you wanted to travel. Why don't you tell us what happened?
Sure. So my husband is double coerced, so he was actually in the States for work, and we had talked about it because he had wanted me to either join him on a trip or something, and was seeing sort of my mental health decline and thinking that getting away would be good. So we talked about it, but I just woke up one morning and decided I'm going. So I packed my bags, put some bathing suits in my bag and beach wear, and I thought I'm going to a beach. And I drove down to U.S. border and handed them my passport. They said, "Where are you going? How long? Have a great trip." I I was stunned. I I figured if I got turned around, I would get turned around, but the fact that I had made it through and I with such ease, I was sort of euphoric. I was trying not to pin the the pedal to the metal and just fly and go, "I'm free." So I decided I phoned him and said, I'm here. I'm in the States. Let's go somewhere. And so he was pretty shocked but excited. And man, that feeling, I had no idea how trapped I felt until I had experienced some of that freedom.
Absolutely. And so you met up with your husband and traveled through different states, or did you stay in one place?
No, I landed in Montana and then flew to Florida, spent a week there, and you're kind of going as we go, and just had the most remarkable time. I was 2 nights in Montana, and I remember even the day that I had sort of arrived, even after a few hours, I felt like I could have gone home and felt some reprieve, um, of just having experienced sort of that freedom, I guess. And really wasn't, it was just that it's not a constant thing hovering over your head about what you're not allowed to do and
Well, and
that
that's
you
what I was
are
going to ask. Like, so what were you seeing in Montana? What were you seeing in Florida? What was life like?
absolutely normal. Flying on a plane, some people wore masks, you didn't have to. It was like it didn't even exist. We actually met a doctor down there who met him sort of along the beach, and he was actually from Ottawa, and got into a little discussion about things. And my husband and daughter were traveling to Paris for her graduation, and I couldn't go. And he kind of asked why, and I skirted around the issue and finally said, "Well, I've chosen not to." And he said, "Not a big deal, whatever." And that was it. And I have literally lost friends of 14 years over that exact discussion. I have lost family over that exact interaction. And to have a perfect stranger just go, and he's a doctor, right? An ER doctor, an anesthesiologist, he just said, whatever. And, we had dinner at his place a couple nights. Like, it was so bizarre. It was hard for me to make sense in my brain of what one reality is versus a different reality. And it was quite fascinating.
And how long were you gone? How long were you in the States for?
A full 2 weeks. When I sort of came back across the border, I said, I was about a week. And then I was like, oh, no, it was actually 2 weeks.
And so when you came back, what were your thoughts? What were you, were you worried? Were you worried that you were going to have trouble at the border returning to Canada? What were your thoughts?
I knew they would have to let me back. I was prepared for some of the questioning that would be asked. I fully admit I could have made my process easier, but there is, I think it was Dr. Nagasi spoke a few weeks ago, there is what is right and what is legal. And sometimes you need to do what is right. And so I chose for myself to do what is right, to have my integrity intact at the end of the process.
And so you got to the border. What happened?
Yeah, so I got to the border, and they asked sort of the usual questions: where have you been? And I was just curious. I said, I'm just curious. When other people are coming across the border, do you ask them where they've been for the past few weeks? And he said, well, no. And I said, oh, so I'm just, why does that matter to you? And he said, well, I need to decide if I investigate you further. And I said, well, I guess that's a choice. It's funny to me that you're asking a Canadian citizen where I've been when you're not asking perfect strangers who don't pay taxes in our country. And I think at that point he was like, oh no.
And so I'm assuming at this point you had disclosed and it was known that you were not vaccinated and you had left the country and were coming back.
So the next question was, am I vaccinated? And I said, yes, because I am, against other things. And then I said to him, I said, look, I don't want to play games. I said, I know that your specific question is, am I vaccinated against COVID-19? And no, I'm not. And he kind of rolled his eyes and he said, okay, well, have you filled in your ArriveCan? And I said, no, because I don't agree to the terms. And he kind of, I could tell he was frustrated. And at that point he said, do you have any alcohol or cigars or like tobacco products? And I said, no. And I have an airplane bottle. I said, I've got that, but whatever. And then he said, I don't suppose you have a negative test. And I said, no, because on the very back of the negative test, it states that it has not been approved for asymptomatic testing. So I said, I really don't need to take it. It hasn't been approved for that. And he said, okay, well, you're going to need to pull over. And he kept asking what my address was. And I said, do you need that for me to enter my country? And he said, no, but I'd like your address. And so I refused to give it to him. I suppose that would be on the ArriveCan app. But so anyway, so I got pulled over and they went through my car, found some cigars that, you're allowed 50. I think I had 30. And it really wasn't my main concern because I was expecting there to be some issues for me coming back into my country. The fact that I was bringing in 30 cigars was really irrelevant to me at that point when, you can travel with 50. And I didn't claim them. I should have, whatever. So they found those and they were quite excited that they could charge me for those and put a block on my Nexus card. And which in hindsight was actually a good thing because I said to him, I can't apply for Nexus anyways. And he said, well, I don't know about that. And I said, look, I had a brain tumor and I'm choosing not to get vaccinated. So I'm not allowed to apply for Nexus. And he said, he kind of shrugged his shoulders. And I said, I think what you would say to somebody like that is, I'm really sorry. Because I can't travel freely now because I have had a personal health issue and now that's affecting my ability to travel. And I said, you would say, I'm sorry to hear that. So if anything, it might've been maybe an opportunity for him to question that it's not just doing the right thing all the time and doing what you're told to do. So
right.
Anyway, so I got charged for the cigars. And they said, I don't suppose you'll speak to public health. And I said, sure, I will. And, which I didn't have to, but I chose to. And he asked me all the questions and I said, I didn't want to give him my health status. I said, I don't think it's relevant. And he was extremely upset. I've got it recorded. He was yelling at me and, you will be fined. You will be you need to quarantine, and if you don't, you will. It was just threat after threat after threat. How I'm putting my fellow countrymen at risk. And I said, 10 minutes ago, I wasn't putting anybody at risk across the border. Well, okay, it was an hour and a half actually by this point, but previously I wasn't putting anybody at risk, but now all of a sudden I'm putting people at risk. And I said, how is this even possible? And he lost it. So he said, you receive a test for day 1 and day 8, you need to leave now, or, you'll receive those and you can go. So I hung up, and the border control, I said, am I free to go? They said, yep. I didn't get any tests. They didn't give them to me. So I left, and I'll be honest, I pulled over and had a cry, because I thought that was a lot of work to enter my own country, a lot of stress. And I had a moment where I thought, I wished I hadn't had that freedom, because coming back was so horrific that it's like them opening up the cage for you to go freely, and then you have to come back into the cage and just happily accept it. And it was, it took me a bit to compose myself.
Now, you had told me that you have, or that you were sort of pulled over again, and you have now received some fines. What happened with that?
So I was pulled over. So after I kind of stopped and tried to compose myself, I got pulled over. About 30 minutes later, I saw a police car stopped on the side of the road, a RCMP, and I kind of knew there were no lights on. It was fully parked, and I thought, here we go. So I looked in the rearview mirror. Sure enough, the lights went on, and the officer came up and asked for my information. At that point, I was feeling pretty beaten up and frustrated, so I handed him my stuff, and he asked me to come out of the car, and he said, I'm really sorry to have to do this. And he said, there was apparently an issue at the border, and I have to give you a fine because it's very expensive. And he said, I hope one day that police officers don't have to worry about public health issues. And so the fine is for $5,750. And that was for not filling in a Arrive can. I assume it says in contravention of the Quarantine Act. And he did direct my attention. He said, I don't suppose you want to sign it. I said, nope, I don't consent to the ticket. And he did say, please notice on page 2, this is how you fight it. And he said, all of the ones that he knows have been thrown out. So
he was advising you of those. Yeah.
What a waste of resources for them to have to deal with this.
Yeah, it's definitely putting them, I think, in a very compromised position. And so you do plan to fight the ticket?
Yes, I've sent it back. I've registered mail, of course, and I've heard nothing. I sort of keep it on my fridge, and part of that is just, I didn't realize that by taking my trip and sort of living my life freely, and I was posting pictures and I sort of thought I shouldn't have to. I thought, I'm living my life. I'm done not living my life. I did that for 3 years after my brain sprout, I called it. I'm not doing that again. So I posted pictures, and I was enjoying it, and the officer, I wish I would have had the wherewithal to say to the officer at the time that I would like for them to start standing up, because me as a citizen, one person, I'm not making a difference. They need to start standing up. If he doesn't believe in it, there is right and there is what is legal. Mm-hmm. And I just keep coming back to that. I thought, wow, that's quite profound.
Well, and there have been quite a few officers, whether RCMP, police, military, that have taken a stand. I think a lot of people are torn, needing to provide for their families and, be gainfully employed versus making that stand. So I think, it puts a lot of people into a very compromised position. Have you received any other fines or tickets that you are anticipating, or?
I haven't, nobody checked up on me during quarantine, so I have no idea if they would assume that I wasn't, or if they would even check. I'm part of the, not concerned. When I came back, another friend knows a couple of police officers, and he said, "Who did you piss off?" And I said, "Probably a lot of people," but the officers actually felt that out of 6 different police officers on 6 different sort of occasions, felt that somebody that I knew had actually reported me to either public health and said that, you know, I would be entering without proper, you know, quarantine, or I'm not exactly sure, but the fact that there was some doubt as to the fact that it was actually border control phoning public health, I really don't know.
So
And
you
like I
feel
said,
like the posts that you shared on Facebook or social media would have sort of exposed that to somebody who might have reported you?
maybe. And again, I don't know. I have phoned public health. I have phoned the Privacy Commission to just let them know that if that did happen, and I did find out that that had happened, I would be pursuing that further. But what I didn't anticipate was the amount of messages that I got of saying how courageous I was and how thankful people were that I did that, because it provided them with some hope. And that far outweighs whatever that was. And it was hard for me. I didn't want to make the story of my trip about this ticket. It really was about providing hope for people, the psychological effect of being trapped in your own country. People fight for that. For China, Korea, we're horrified at that in other countries. And it's happening right here. And people are not standing up and saying, "Oh yeah, I don't," well, they might go, "Oh, I don't, yeah, maybe it's not right." But no, it's not right. We see it in other countries, but we just can't see it right in front of us for some reason. We think it's a privilege, and yes, maybe that is, but it's something that we used to have and now we don't have.
Well, there are a number of lawsuits that have been brought against the mandates against the federal government, and you know, those are obviously ongoing and playing out in the courts. And of course, on Monday we had the vote in Parliament where it has been extended. The travel vaccine mandates have been extended for at least another month in Canada, and hoping to see change. There are many people that, like you, are prisoners in their own country. I received an email the other day from a Canadian citizen who lives in Korea and can't return home because they won't be able to again leave to return to their life in Korea and their work and their job and family. So it's a devastating situation for many families. And with the ticket you received, is there any kind of court date on it? What's next on this for you?
I guess I just sit and wait. I can't remember what they said. If I would, just sort of says wait further instructions.
Okay.
So I guess I'll just wait further instructions. But to your point about people, you know, not understanding, we also, you know, I have many friends who would like to travel and see their families outside of the country and are worried about how to go about doing that, and will they see these people, their family again, whether it's their child who is 20 something living in another country, whether it's a parent who is sick even across our own country. This is no longer about health and 100% about compliance, because and the vote on Monday was absolutely showed and proved that that is what this is about. This is about politics. This is not about health. The fact that our healthcare system right now has 82% people fully vaccinated in the ICUs tells me that this is no longer about health. Because then we shouldn't be, if everybody gets it and can spread it, then clearly this isn't about health.
Right. Well, thanks for sharing your experience, Brooke. We'll hopefully you can let me know what ends up coming with the ticket, and if you do end up getting a court date, let us know, and we'll perhaps follow that and see how this ends up playing out for you. Would you do it again?
Yeah, I would. And you know, the ticket, I do believe that they are, let's say, fraudulent, that they're actually not, that it's actually not law. It is a mandate. And Absolutely, I'd do it again. That break was so incredibly necessary. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people would argue too, part of the reason why they are not holding up in court in many circumstances is the fact that they have been found to be unconstitutional. Very challenging times still remain in this country, and we hope for change soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks
Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing, Brooke.
Thank you, Mel.